The biggest storm of November will be coming to the United States over the next few days, and this will bring several rounds of severe storms, including damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes across parts of the central and southern plains. This will also dump several inches of rainfall across a large chunk of the central and southern plains, back into the Midwest, and even parts of the Ohio Valley. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about this large storm and what kind of impacts it'll be bringing to the United States. Let's begin with what's happening across the country this morning, which right now things are still relatively quiet. We've had some ongoing showers and thunderstorms that developed last night in parts of southern and western Texas. Nothing really too crazy came out of these aside from some hail and wind, but essentially what we're watching for this morning is a large area of thunderstorms that's developed in West Texas, and this is eventually going to upscale into a more of a line of thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon hours, and that'll bring some damaging winds to areas like Oklahoma and Texas, and eventually we'll be watching for a more elevated tornado threat later today, and we'll be talking more about that here in just a moment. Overall, though, the entire East Coast, Ohio Valley, and as well as the Southeast for the time being remains very quiet. That may change as we go later into next week, and we also could see a little tropical system come out of the Caribbean Sea and go into the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll also be talking about that later in this forecast. We do have several days of severe weather ahead. Beginning with today, we have a slight risk of severe weather that extends from Oklahoma back into West Texas. There's also a marginal threat that does extend into extreme southern Kansas. The main concern for today will be damaging winds and also the potential for some large to even very large hail, especially back over in areas like Midland, Texas. There is also an elevated tornado risk for today. It is a very small area, but it's for those near Midland, Texas. We do have a little 5% tornado risk that's in place. This is actually something that we may go live for later today. We'll be watching trends, so if you are not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified if we do go live. I also want to note that there is a low-end tornado risk that goes all the way back up into parts of central and southern Oklahoma, and if that ends up materializing, we also may be live on this channel. So again, make sure you're subscribed down below. As we go into Sunday, things become more concerning, but it's a lot more questionable what's exactly going to be happening on both Sunday and Monday. Sunday could be a big day, but it's going to depend on a lot of things, and we're going to be talking all about it here in just a moment. For right now, the Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk of severe weather in place for central and southern Oklahoma and into parts of north central Texas and also north Texas. Marginal threat goes all the way back up into Nebraska and also into eastern Texas and western Arkansas. Now, the main concern for now is damaging winds and also large hail across the central and southern plains. The tornado risk for now is a 5% tornado risk. I could see this being much higher in a future outlook, but it depends on a lot of things, and most of it is going to depend on what we exactly see in the morning hours on Sunday and if the atmosphere will destabilize as we go into the afternoon hours, and we'll be showing you what that looks like in the possible scenarios in just a moment. But for the time being, the Storm Prediction Center has outlined that there could be a few tornadoes, especially in the brown shaded area, which includes areas just north and west of Dallas-Fort Worth into central and southern Oklahoma and into north central Texas, and then the low end tornado risk goes from Kansas all the way back into western Arkansas. Let's begin with the tornado parameter values for both today and tomorrow to kind of outline where the greatest tornado threat is going to reside. For today, we are watching the main concern for tornadoes will be in West Texas. We think that there will be a couple of discrete supercells that fire off later this afternoon and into the early evening hours, and those could translate into potentially an isolated tornado or two. Wouldn't even rule out an isolated strong tornado. We're also watching a narrow corridor across parts of north central Texas and into central and southern Oklahoma, where if a supercell is able to develop, we also could see an isolated tornado or maybe even a QLCS tornado with a line of thunderstorms that'll be happening in those areas. As we go into Sunday morning, things are going to really calm down, I think, when it comes to the tornado threat, but we are going to be watching for some thunderstorms during the morning Sunday. Here's when things become very, very uncertain. It's going to depend on a lot of what happens today, but as we go into Sunday, the tornado threat right now could be higher than what it is currently forecasted to be, but we don't know what's going to happen yet. The environment is very favorable. We have a lot of wind shear and also a lot of instability, really just a favorable environment in general. The problem is going to be a lot of convection is going to be happening in the morning, and if that sticks around even through the early afternoon, we could see the atmosphere very stable, and that means storms may not end up firing up. But if it does destabilize, this environment is very favorable to the point where I could see there being even a localized tornado outbreak, perhaps in North Texas and as well as into central and southern Oklahoma on Sunday. However, it's very uncertain right now. The tornado parameter values for now are on the higher side of things right along the Red River, but it's not really in the most primed environment, and you'll see why here on the future radar. Here's what we're looking at for the rest of today. Storms will be really ongoing throughout the morning hours across the Texas Panhandle. Flash flooding will be a possibility throughout the afternoon. Notice how storms continue to really rumble into western Oklahoma. This will be mostly a wind threat as it moves into central and western Oklahoma, but an embedded tornado or two are not impossible. As we go later into the afternoon, by around 6 to 7 o'clock, that is when discrete supercells will try to fire off back over in West Texas near Midland. These will be the ones capable of very large hail, damaging winds, and perhaps an isolated tornado or two, as long as they're not elevated. As we go later into the evening, those storms will fizzle out. We'll be dealing with this line of thunderstorms even into Sunday morning, and look how this is just going to be training from southwest to northeast. We are dealing with the potential for a significant flooding threat back over in parts of central Oklahoma. So if you're in a low-lying area, be mindful of this. The potential for flash flooding is going to be elevated, especially as we go into Sunday morning. Severe weather will be a possibility overnight Saturday into Sunday, mostly a wind threat. Here's where things get very tricky as a weather forecaster. We don't exactly know what's going to happen right now. The HRRR is showing convection all the way through about lunchtime, and it still shows ongoing convection even into the afternoon hours, and as long as that's there, it's going to stabilize the atmosphere. However, we do think that there's going to be a corridor here in North Texas and southern Oklahoma where a couple of discrete cells could end up firing up during the late afternoon and early evening, and if those are able to get going, an elevated tornado risk will definitely be in play. Now, the HRRR also shows a large complex of thunderstorms developing back over in central Texas around 2 to 3 o'clock. If that happens, this could end up just being more of a windbag instead of a tornado threat. So there's a lot of tricky variables here, and as we get closer, as we go into tomorrow, we're going to have another update for you. If we go live tonight, we'll also be talking about this because it is a very tricky forecast until we know what's going to be happening today. Now, I'm going to show you a model that's going to show you the high-end scenario of what could end up happening if everything goes right. And this is the RRFS model, which is actually a model that does usually overdo certain weather events. But this is what we're looking at for later today. Notice how it shows several discrete supercells out there. Again, it's a high-end scenario. With that said, it is technically a possibility if all these storms up here to the north stay really far off to the north, essentially leaving this area in West Texas to destabilize more. As we go into tomorrow, though, that's when we're really going to be watching for, because watch this as we go into the morning hours. Most of the convections lifted off to the north or back over to the west allows for a pretty good amount of destabilization here in North Texas during the late morning and early afternoon hours. And then this is the model that actually shows several discrete supercells firing off during the mid to late afternoon hours. First off, it shows a training area of storms developing in central and southern Oklahoma and North Texas. Most of these are going to be wind producers, but there also could be some hail and maybe a tornado or two. This is an area that might clear out, though, and eventually allow for a few discrete supercells to develop, and that would be the concern that we would have to watch for as we go into late Sunday and as well as into very early Monday morning. So that's something that we'll have to watch for, and then eventually as we go into Monday, things become a little bit more uncertain, but I do think both Sunday and Monday are going to be two big days that we have to watch for. It's very conditional as of right now, but if the environment is ripe, we could be talking about some sort of outbreak on either day, or even perhaps both days. Now, this is the NAM model for the tornado parameter values on Monday. We'll be talking more about this threat in our next forecast, but for the time being, things remain uncertain here as well, since we don't know what's going to happen today and tomorrow, but there is an environment here that is favorable for also a few more tornadoes across Missouri, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Let's hope nothing happens out of this, but again, there is a potential here that we are talking about outbreaks the next couple of days. It's just, again, a matter of what will these storms be looking like by tomorrow morning, and will the atmosphere essentially destabilize across parts of the central and southern plains. We don't know for sure yet, but we'll keep you posted with the latest, so make sure you are subscribed down below. One of the reasons why this is going to be one of the larger storms that we've seen so far this fall, and also the largest storm thus far here in November, is how much rain it is going to bring over the next 7 to 10 days. This is just over the next 4 or 5 days. Look at how much rain is going to fall out of just this system. We are going to have a very strong southwesterly flow in the jet stream. That's going to bring tons of rain, especially across parts of the central and southern plains, but even areas in the Midwest are likely to see between between 1 to 3 inches of rain out of this. Here's the concern, though, on top of this. We need rain, but we don't need as much rain as what the European model is currently indicating. At least for now, many areas are currently expected to see anywhere from 6 to perhaps even 12 inches of rainfall in parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri. We even could see some localized areas like that in parts of north central Texas. So obviously this storm is going to bring the potential for severe weather. It may or may not pan out the way that it's currently thought to maybe pan out as, maybe like it has an outbreak or something like that. But this particular threat with the flooding is a big concern. I highly recommend that if you're in a low-lying area that you're watching the weather very closely, and also turn around, don't drown on the roadways. The tropics are once again heating up. We do have a high chance now of development in the Caribbean Sea. This system will be moving to the north and northwest, likely to enter into the Gulf of Mexico, and from there, where does it go and how strong will it be? Well, first off, I think we'll have maybe a tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico sometime next week, maybe even a low-end hurricane, but the water temperatures are cooler in the Gulf, so we're probably going to see something on the lower spectrum of things. With that said, this is going to be something to watch for, and we'll talk more about it in a future forecast. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.